Manipulating widgets from different classes is an important technique when using Tkinter. I'll show you how to modify widgets from different classes that are in different files. In the example that we'll use, after the user clicks the Submit button, the user will get a response back. But the code that's responsible for changing the label's text is in a completely different class and a different Python file. We'll cover two ways to get this done.
Hi, my name is Jobin, and I'm an open source developer. My channel is called JobinPy, and it's all about Python and Linux. Welcome to JobinPy.
So in this video, I'm going to show you how to modify widgets from different classes. Here's an example. This program is asking, what is your favorite programming language? And if I type in Python and click Submit, it comes up with a response. This response is coming from a different class than this window. And the response, the code that's responsible for this response, the part that says Python is really cool, it's coming from a different Python file and a different class. And I'll show you how the other class was able to modify this label that's on this window. Okay, so to get started with the code, we'll write import tkinter as tk. From tkinter, import ttk. Here we'll write if name equal main. And we'll pass this for now. We're just going to come back to this. Then we'll create a new class. We'll call it main window, and it's going to derive from tk.tk. We'll write the constructor for it, and then we'll initialize it with super. So we're not going to ask for any arguments here. So there's no parameters. So we're using super to initialize tk.tk. Then we're going to create a method. Create frame main, and it's going to return a ttk frame. Then we'll write self.frame main equal ttk.frame, and we're going to put this into self. And this frame is basically just going to cover the main window. Then we'll create a label. We'll call it label title. So lbl underscore title equal ttk.label. We'll put this into self.frame main. We're gonna put everything into main frame in this example. Text equal what is your favorite programming language? And we're gonna change the justify option to tk.center, so the text is centered. Then we're going to create an entry widget, so entry underscore answer equal ttk.entry. We're also going to put this into frame underscore main. Then we're going to create a button, self.btn submit equal ttk.button, which is also going to go into frame underscore main, and we're going to set the text to submit. Okay, and we're going to create the command for it later. Then we're going to create a label that's going to contain a response after the submit button is clicked. So self.lbl underscore response equal ttk.label. We're going to also put this into frame underscore main, and we're not going to give this any text yet because the text will come from a different class. Then we're going to pack everything onto the screen. So label title should be packed first, then the entry widget should be packed, then the submit button, and finally the label response widget. And I'm going to give this a pad y of 15 just to give this response some space from the other widgets. And finally, we're going to return self.frame_main because we haven't actually packed self.frame_main anywhere yet. Then up here in the init constructor, we're going to call the method that we just created, which is creating all the other widgets. So here we're going to write self.createFrameMain. Then we're going to pack this onto the main window. Fill equal tk.both, expand equal true. Okay, so now we have our main window created. Oh, and we need a colon up here too. So now we have our main window created. Now we just need to instantiate that class. So back down here, if name equal main. So I'm going to write main_window equal main window. And then main_window dot main loop. So it starts the main Tkinter loop. And this part here is saying that if this file main_window.py is being imported from another Python file, not to run this, but if it's being executed by itself, then it should proceed and run those two lines of code. Okay, so I'm just going to run this to see what we get. Okay, perfect. So we have our window here. Currently it doesn't do anything just yet. And the label_response will be down here. So I'll actually show you where it is exactly. I'm just going to temporarily put some text on that label. So I'm going to say, hi, I am a label. So there it is. So you can see label_response is actually right down here. And that's the main label that we're going to be working with. We're going to cause the text to change from a different class and a different Python file. Okay, so I'm just going to remove that text. So it's back to what it was. Okay, and now in the answer.py file, we're going to create a class. We're going to call it response. And we're going to create our init constructor. Here we can ask for an answer, and the answer is going to be as a string. Here we're going to ask for a label widget. So self.answer equal answer, self.label widget equal label widget. Then here we're going to create a method called getResponse. And based on what the user provides us, we're going to respond with a specific sentence. So here we can say if self.answer equal Python, self.label_widget.configure text equal Python is really cool. Else self.label_widget.configure text equal I don't know that language. Like that. Okay, so basically we're going to get the answer as a string, and if the answer is Python, we're going to modify the label and by changing its text to the following here. And if it's not set to Python, if the user's answer is not Python, it's going to run this. And the interesting bit about this is that here we're going to be modifying the widget that's not even inside this file. We're going to be modifying a widget that's not even part of this class. So let's see it in action. So back to main_window, we need to create another method for the button for whenever it's clicked. So here we can say on submit button clicked. Then we're going to get the user's answer. So user answer equal self.entry answer.get. So we're going to get the text that the user inputted in the entry widget, whatever that they typed. Then here we're going to write response, and we actually need to import this class into our main window Python file. because the response class is an answer.py, but our main window is in main_window.py. So going to the top, we're going to write from answer import response with a capital R, because that's what we have here. Okay, so now that that class has been imported from answer.py into main_window.py, we can use it in our code, in our file here. So back to the submit button. So here we're going to say response equal response with a capital R. So now we're calling the class. We're going to instantiate it. Then answer equal user answer. Label widget equal self dot LBL response. So now we're giving this class the user's answer as a string, but we're also giving it access to the label inside our class here. So the other Python file and the other class will have a reference to that label. And then we'll write response.get response. And get response, again, is responsible for showing us the sentence based on the user's answer. Okay, so let's just run this. Oh, before we do, we need to actually connect this method to our button. So up here for the button, we'll write command equals self dot on submit button clicked. Okay, so let's just run our main window and see what we get. What is your favorite programming language? I'm going to write Python, submit. Okay, so we get our sentence. If I write something else, we get the other sentence. So the interesting bit, again, is we're sending a reference to the label to the other class. And you might be thinking, now that the other class has a reference to that label, are the two labels different? Does answer.py have a different label? Is it a copy? So whatever changes that we make to one, do they reflect in the other class? And the answer is they're exactly the same label. Both labels are identical. And I can show you this. So here's an example. Here, when the user clicks on the submit button, I'm going to write print with a F string, and I'm going to put main_window.py label underscore response ID, and we're going to print the ID. So I'm going to use ID and then self dot label response. So I'm going to get the ID of this label inside main_window, and similarly I'm going to get the ID of the label that we got here. So print f string answer.py label widget ID, and I'm going to use ID self.label widget. Okay, and let's just run this and see what we get. Going to put in Python, click submit, and look down here. So in answer.py, the label widget ID is this. In main.py, label_response, the ID is also that. So what is the ID? The ID is a memory address or a memory identifier for that widget. So this is telling us that both of these references, both of these variables, are referencing the exact same memory location, which means they're identical. In other words, when I type something in here and click on submit, answer.py is getting a reference to that label and modifying its text. So in fact, it's really just one label with two different names. So here we're calling that label label _ widget. And here we're the name for that same widget is LBL _ response. But those two variables are pointing to the exact same memory location. It's kind of like having two pieces of paper with the same address written on both pieces. So this program works, and we saw how we can interact from one class or one object with another object in two different files. But there's a more elegant way of dealing with a situation like this where you need to update a widget from another class. We can actually go back into answer.py and we can update that same label without having a reference to that label at all. And I'll show you how to do that. This is actually my preferred way of updating widgets, is the second way that I'm about to show you. So going back to main _ window.py, I'm going to create a new method, but first I'm going to delete those two print statements with the IDs. Okay, so back in main _ window.py, I'm going to create a method called change label text. And we're going to ask for new text as a string. Then we're going to say self.label _ response.configure text equal new text. So there's nothing really strange happening here. It's something that we've seen before. It's a method, and we're taking in text, and from that text that we're getting in, we're updating label _ response with that new text. So far so good. But we're going to make a change. In answer.py, we're not going to ask for the label widget. We're going to ask for the method. So here I'm going to write m _ update text. And here m update text equal m _ update text. M here, I just put that there just to symbolize that it's a method. Then here, I'm going to write, instead of label _ widget, we're going to put self.m update _ text, and we don't need the text equal part. M _ update text. And same thing here, we don't need text equal. So now we're not updating the label. And I'll show you what's about to happen. So back into main _ window, in the method for when the button gets clicked, the submit button, here we're calling the response class, and we're not passing a label here anymore. So we need to change that to m _ update text equal. And here's the key part. We're going to pass in this self.change label _ text. Okay, let's just run this and see what we get. Okay, I'm just going to put Python in there again and click on submit. And we got the same result. But our code is different. So what's different about it? The difference is we're no longer passing a reference to a label. We're passing a reference to a method. And here's the interesting part. And it's one of the things that really stands out in Python as a programming language. You can pass around functions and methods as parameters, as arguments. So just like how we can pass a variable from one method to another method, you can pass a function or a method from one class to the next. So as we saw here, we're passing in this exact method over to our response class. So what actually is m _ update.text? Well, let's find out. We're going to print the type of variable that is, and let's see what Python gives us. So the type of variable is it's a class method. That's the type that was passed, which allows you to do all sorts of things. So the part that's really neat about this is that answer.py at this point in time knows nothing about the label. The only thing it knows is a method that it needs to call, but it doesn't know anything about any of the widgets that are in main_window.py. And I think this is a good way of changing widgets that are in different classes. So one of the advantages by just passing a method is that at this point in answer.py, you can't accidentally make a change directly to the label. So if you have someone else working on your code inside answer.py and specifically in the response class, it helps to keep the bugs to a minimum, because you're not really dealing with widgets directly at this point. You're just calling methods that exist in main_window.py. So everything is self-contained in a way. And this is the whole idea of creating classes. Answer.py, and specifically this response class, it doesn't have to be in its own separate file. This response class could also be in main_.py, and the code wouldn't change, at least not in this file. As your Tkinter application grows, you want to have different classes for significant parts of your program. So if you have a toolbar, you want that toolbar to have its own class. And then you want that toolbar class not to always have direct access to the widgets, but maybe just call methods. Or if your Tkinter application deals with images, you would have a class that specifically just deals with images. And those different sections and different classes in your Tkinter application, they don't really need to know anything about the full picture. They don't need access to all the widgets.
Interconnecting classes and widgets is an important technique to make your Tkinter application code more organized and more readable. We saw how to modify widgets from different classes. If you enjoyed this video, please click the like button and consider subscribing to my channel if you haven't already done so. Until the next tutorial, thanks for watching.